A baby prince was thrown into the sea, but magic changed his destiny forever. Years earlier, on a cold and stormy night, Mila wandered alone through the dark forest. Suddenly, a strange glowing hut appeared between the trees. With trembling hands, Mila slowly knocked on the ancient door. The wooden door slowly opened. An old woman with glowing eyes stood inside the hut. She looked at Mila as if she already knew her secret.
One day,
The old woman whispered.
your son will become a great king.
Lightning flashed across the room, and suddenly, the old woman vanished. Years passed, and Mila's mother became very sick and died. Soon after, Mila's father brought home a new wife named Vera and her 2 daughters. And nothing felt the same again. From that day on, Mila was treated like a servant. Meanwhile, Vera's daughters only cared about themselves, but Mila stayed kind, even after everything. And Vera hated her for it. One stormy night, King Sultan rode through the village. Then he saw a light glowing through a window, and heard soft whispers inside. Curious, he slowly moved closer. The first sister dreamed of giant royal feasts. The second sister dreamed of making royal dresses. But Mila wished for something very different, a brave and kind son. Hidden in the shadows, the king had heard all 3 wishes and smiled quietly. The very next morning, royal carriages arrived in the village. To everyone's surprise, the king chose Mila to be his wife. But Vera watched silently, with jealousy growing in her heart. Soon after, the kingdom celebrated a grand royal wedding. Vera secretly began planning against the new queen with her 2 daughters. Months later, Mila gave birth to a baby boy. She named him Ivan. At that time, the king was far away, fighting in a distant war. But Vera saw her chance and prepared a cruel plan. She wrote a false message, claiming that the queen had given birth to a monster, and sent it to the king. The letter reached the battlefield, and the king read it in shock. The king's heart was filled with rage and confusion, and he made a terrible decision. Without knowing the truth, he gave a strict order. Back at the palace, Vera gave the cruel order. That night, Mila and her baby were taken away. They placed them inside a wooden barrel and carried it toward the sea. Then, the barrel disappeared into the dark ocean. For many days and nights, the sea carried the lonely barrel. Until something appeared through the thick ocean fog, an island. The waves crashed one last time, and the barrel hit the island shore. On that island, Mila raised her son Ivan day by day, until he became a strong young man. But one question never left his heart: who was his father? Then one day, a terrifying scream echoed across the island. A giant black beast was attacking a helpless white swan. Without fear, Ivan grabbed his bow and ran toward the danger. Ivan took a deep breath, pulled back the bowstring, and fired. The arrow struck the beast, and the creature disappeared into the stormy sky. The beautiful swan landed before Ivan, and suddenly began to glow with magic. Before Ivan's eyes, the magical swan transformed into a princess.
You saved my life.
The princess said softly. Then she raised her glowing hand toward the sky, and the entire island began to tremble with magic. Towers of shining stone rose from the earth, as if an entire kingdom had been sleeping beneath the island. In only moments, the lonely island had transformed into a magnificent kingdom of gold, light, and magic. Far across the sea, Tsar Sultan believed Mila and young Ivan were gone forever, never knowing he had been deceived. Yet in the depths of the magical kingdom, Ivan finally felt something stirring in his heart, a destiny that had been waiting for him since birth. The princess gently stepped forward, and revealed the truth that Ivan's courage had awakened the magic of the Forgotten Kingdom. And as Ivan accepted his destiny, the entire kingdom responded, as if it had been waiting for its true heir all along. Deep within the palace, an ancient seal began to break, releasing a forgotten power that had slept for centuries. From the heart of the light, an ancient royal spirit appeared, blessing Ivan as the rightful protector of the kingdom. As the blessing settled, the chamber fell silent, and Ivan felt a new strength awaken deep within him. The princess then turned toward the horizon, as if sensing that a final chapter of their journey was about to begin. In the distance, dark clouds began to gather, hinting that a new danger was approaching the magical kingdom. The princess tightened her gaze. She knew that whatever was coming was tied to Ivan's forgotten past. Suddenly, a distant horn echoed across the sky, a sound that did not belong to the magical kingdom. But moments later, the guards discovered the terrifying sound was not a monster at all. It was a merchant ship had lost its way during the storm. Ivan quickly ran to the shore, determined to help the exhausted travelers. The tired merchants stepped onto the island, then froze in amazement at the magical kingdom before their eyes. Ivan welcomed the exhausted merchants into the palace, where they revealed they were traders from the kingdom of Tsar Sultan. As the merchants spoke of Tsar Sultan's kingdom, Ivan's curiosity grew stronger and stronger. He dreamed of seeing that distant land with his own eyes. Ivan hurried to his mother, asked about the kingdom of the King Sultan, but the moment Mila heard those words, her smile faded. Mila reached for Ivan's hand and gently held it. The time had finally come to reveal the secrets she had carried for so long. Mila told Ivan everything. About King Sultan, about the day he was born, and about Vera's cruel deception that had torn their family apart. Now Ivan understood why he had always felt that something was missing. Somewhere beyond the sea was the father who had never stopped being part of his story. The next morning, the merchants thanked Ivan for his kindness and prepared to sail home across the sea. Before they left, Ivan asked the merchants to carry a special invitation to King Sultan himself. Soon the ship disappeared beyond the horizon, but Ivan was not ready to wait for news. A bold idea suddenly came to him. If the ship was sailing to his father's kingdom, why not follow it? Ivan hurried to the Swan princess and asked for one more magical favor. With a wave of her hand, the magic of the island answered his wish. Moments later, a tiny bumblebee darted into the sky and raced after the ship. Soon, the merchants arrived at the royal harbor and hurried to the palace with news of the mysterious island kingdom. Before long, the merchants stood before King Sultan and delivered a royal invitation from Prince Ivan, the young ruler of a magical kingdom beyond the sea. As the king read the invitation, the merchants began describing the marvelous kingdom they had visited. The more he heard, the more curious King Sultan became. A magical kingdom rising from the sea was something he simply had to see for himself. But in the shadows of the palace, Vera moved quickly. She tried once again to stop the king from setting sail. But unseen by all, a tiny bumblebee hovered close, watching every word. Just as Vera spoke her final lie, the air struck back. The palace burst into chaos, but King Sultan's decision was already made. Ignoring the confusion around him, King Sultan made his choice. He would sail to the magical kingdom at once. Within moments, order spread across the kingdom, and preparations for the voyage began. Ivan watched in silence. His father's journey had finally begun. As soon as the royal fleet set sail, Ivan raced ahead across the sea. He had to return home before his father arrived. By the time the sun began to set, the magical kingdom was already in sight. Ivan hurried straight to the Swan princess, carrying exciting news. With a touch of magic, the tiny bumblebee became Prince Ivan once more. Soon, the entire kingdom was preparing for a very special guest. Days later, a lookout spotted sails on the horizon. King Sultan's fleet had finally arrived. As the royal ships drew closer, Prince Ivan waited at the harbor, wondering what would happen when his father finally stepped ashore. At last, King Sultan stepped onto the enchanted island, unaware that the answer he had searched for all these years was waiting just ahead. As King Sultan walked through the harbor, his eyes fell upon a young prince waiting to greet him. Something about the boy felt strangely familiar. Then, through the crowd, someone caught the king's eye. The moment he saw her, Tsar Sultan recognized Mila at once. Later, inside the palace, Mila told King Sultan everything: how Vera had deceived him, and how she and Ivan had been sent away across the sea. As he heard the truth, King felt deep sorrow for the years he had lost with his family. But when he looked at Ivan, his sadness turned into pride. At last, the family was together again. Soon, the whole kingdom learned the truth, and a great celebration began. Prince Ivan and the Swan princess got married and ruled the magical kingdom together. King Sultan returned to his kingdom with Mila by his side, and there he gave his order. Vera was made to serve in the palace, learning the consequences of her actions. And so, their story became a legend of love, truth, and reunion.